All right. Enough of all of that. Hi, everybody. This is Rick Wagner. We are back. Another week flies by. Right here on KGLN, KNZZ, a bunch of other places. AM, FM, 1100, 980, 92.7, 101.8, I don't know. All over the place out there. Thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. And you can hear the show live on the Internet if you go to the 1100 KNZZ website, or just go to my website, politicalviking.com, or the rickwagnershow.com. Both of them will get you there. You'll not only be able to click on the show, you'll be able to download a bunch of the podcasts, many of which are just, these show segments that we put up for folks that wanted them. There's a little bit of video you can click on from us, but a whole lot of other information there, just tons of it. I tried to count how many different news feeds we have in there from conservative news sites. I think it's like 16, something like 18. And then some stories down the middle that will shock, amaze, and break your heart, frankly, a few of them, about what's going on today. But you got to know it. Anyway, so welcome back. I hope the helicopter music that I loved playing in the beginning, is not a foreshadowing of what's going on in the Ukraine. Why not? When you get invited in by the U.S. president who doesn't know where the Ukraine is or where he's at or where Putin's at or where his shoes are at or anything else, Lord knows what's going to happen. I have to say I have a little different take on the Ukraine situation. I've talked about it here before than some of the others out there, and only because I spent a lot of time studying Soviet foreign policy, which is pretty much the foreign policy of Putin, and that is Ukraine is more important than many people think because, of course, it's the breadbasket of certainly Eastern Europe and largely the Soviet Union, which they found out in 1929 when the kulaks, which were rather prosperous farmers in the area of the Ukraine. As I've said before, the Ukraine is pretty much like the Midwest in the United States. It's like Kansas. You drop a sunflower seed and you come back an hour later and there's a sunflower there. The land is just that rich. And so there were a lot of pretty prosperous farmers there, which didn't go along with Stalin's idea of the philosophy of communal poverty, I suppose. And so they seized the property, sent a lot of the kulaks, which were the wealthy farmers, to Siberia, turned them into communal farms, and then within 2 years, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people died of starvation throughout Russia. Shows you just how great that stuff works, Bernie Sanders. Next time you're vacationing there, or you want to maybe renew your vows with your wife, and you could maybe visit some of the places where they had collective farms and everybody died and nobody was able to get any food and the whole thing fell apart. But I doubt that that's going to make much of an impression on someone like old Bernie. He sees what he wants to see, and that ain't much. It was a terribly frightening press conference on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? Yeah, it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. The mind has a way of taking shocking things and just filing them away and helping you forget about them. I thought that it was interesting. The most positive thing anybody could say on the left was he managed to stand up there almost 2 hours. Well, that is one heck of an accomplishment. Now, I've had some back problems. I hurt my back a few years ago, and standing up there 2 hours would have been quite an accomplishment. Many of you may have those same kinds of problems. But absent things like that, that's not exactly a qualification for a president. FDR, cruddy president as he was, for the most part, good wartime president, lousy at everything else, was in a wheelchair and did just fine. I would settle for Ronald Reagan on a gurney as opposed to Joe Biden standing up. I would like Trump just shouting at people from rolling the window down of a long black limousine and hurling words at people over 2 hours of Biden standing there. So that's neither here nor there. But what we are seeing everywhere, and this affects us. Now, we know that we have a lot of listeners here, of course, obviously in western Colorado, eastern Utah, where they're here directly over the air. Got a lot of internet listeners, which we appreciate. We're getting a lot of folks out on the podcast and visiting the webpage. Like I said, that politicalviking.com webpage is getting a lot of visits, and I'm not selling anything on it or anything. It's just all news and trying to get it all in one spot for you. And we enjoy doing it, by the way. I'm also putting up some videos. I have Douglas Murray, one of my favorites up there. And of course, Victor Hansen, my sort of, my spirit animal. And some others. There's actually one up there now I'll keep it up a couple more days. Kimberly Strassel, who many of you will recognize from Wall Street Journal's panel. She's very bright, funny, and really smart. And she's talking about free speech in America. There's another one from Douglas Murray on free speech I'll probably put up pretty soon. That all these things are worth listening to, and you don't get drug anywhere when you click on them. I have them set up so that they'll play on the site there, so you don't get yanked to some weird YouTube channel or something like that. You can go there if you want to, but you don't have to. But what I was looking at was some of the economic indicators we had. Now, those of you that have had an opportunity to take a look at what's been going on in the markets, the stock market I don't think is a particularly good indicia of the health of our economy anymore. It's too volatile. It has too many imaginary investments in it. People will invest in things and raise a stock value of stuff that has yet to make a profit. There's a lot of hopeful thinking about things. Now, some of it has come to pass. I mean, Amazon for years didn't make any money at all, and people continue to invest in because they thought they liked the idea. I don't like the idea, but I do order from it. I think that it's unfortunately useful. I wish Jeff Bezos was not Jeff Bezos, but I try and minimize that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, there's a lot of things out there that are overinflated price-wise. And I'm talking to you people that own Apple. Sorry. I know Apple is it Apple the most valuable company now? If it isn't, it's the second most valuable company, but I think it is. And it's certainly had some successes, but it hasn't had a particularly bright or good idea since the iPhone and some of the developments of that. Once Steve Jobs is gone, as big a pain in the rear end as he was a true visionary. I mean, people say that about folks all the time. People love to say it about themselves. When someone else tells you that they're a visionary, they should be avoided at all costs. But he was. He was a lousy businessman. He got good business managers. You think, how could he found Apple if he was? Well, they almost ran him out of business once. They had to fire him. He had a meteoric rise because he had great ideas. He had an eye for style, and he had an eye for things he thought people would use, that would be cool or, trick. And he really had that idea, but he didn't have a great financial sense on stuff. So he had to be kept in check. And, when he was running the company, he eventually got to the point where with a Macintosh and stuff like that, they were going to go to business. And they brought him back, and he saved them again with a lot of crazy good ideas. The CEO now, Tim, what's Tim's last name? I think I've tried to forget who he is, but he's largely forgettable, as you might guess. But there's a lot of overvaluation in the stock market out there and a few other things, and there's a lot of overvaluation in the real estate market. And it's headed towards not a great place. I mentioned it before. I don't think it's not going to be like 2008 where you had just a valuation bubble that was powered and based upon just a lot of really bad choices and semi-illegal activity and mortgage-backed securities and stuff like that. So you had a double fall then. For those of you that are familiar with a double Ferris wheel, anybody ever seen one of those? I've only seen a couple of them. They're not something you haul around. But a double Ferris wheel is two Ferris wheels, big surprise, on a pivot, right? And so each Ferris wheel is turning independently on its own axis. And then they are rotating around each other on this big pendulum arm, where there's a Ferris wheel on each end. So if you ever get on one, there's a time where you can be coming down the Ferris wheel, which all of us knows can be kind of, your stomach goes out from under you. You can be coming down the Ferris wheel as that Ferris wheel is coming down the pendulum, rotating around the center where the other pendulum's coming up on the other side. And it's a really long drop, and it's really scary. And that can happen in the financial markets sometimes. Kind of depends on where you are. You get a multiplier effect by good ideas and bad ideas. We'll be back in a second.